Testing the sound. This is only a test. The audio will resume when the service begins. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Congregation Beth Ahabah. I'm so glad that you're here. Both those of you in person here in the sanctuary and the people watching our beautiful YouTube channel. My name is Cantor Sarah Beck Berman, and joining me this evening in leading services is our music director, Natan Berenstein, at the piano. And joining me on the bima this evening is our second vice president of the congregation, Laura Harrison. We'll be using Mishkan Tefillah, and it should say Shabbat on the cover, as our prayer book this evening. And I invite you all to read along and sing along in whatever ways are comfortable for you. And as we go through the service, I'll do my best to announce page numbers, but be aware that many of the prayers are on a two-page layout, such that the right-hand page has Hebrew transliteration of the prayer into English characters and translation of the prayer into English. And the left-hand page has alternative poems and readings on that same theme. So again, I invite you all to read along and participate with whatever words in whatever way is comfortable for you. And we'll begin our service this evening on page 20. Page 20, as we greet Shabbat with Lecha Dodi, and Lecha Dodi has many verses, but we will not do all the verses. We will do verses 1 and 2, and then I will remind everyone to rise and face the doorway for verse 9, where we welcome in Shabbat as though she were a queen. And at the end of verse 9, when we go back to the chorus, everyone is invited to sit back down and take their seats. So we begin together at the top of page 20 with Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmiyanu el ha'miyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'lithilah. Lecha Dodi Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor haberacha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela. We rise for verse 9. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha u'v'tzola toch emunei am segula. Boi chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Yeah, Shabbat Shalom. And now we come to the moment where we welcome Shabbat in, the moment where we turn from regular everyday time into our sacred special Shabbat time. And we do that by lighting candles and sing Kiddush, our prayer over wine or grape juice. So I'd like to invite up Laura Harrison as we turn to page 2 in our Sidurim, page 2, and light candles together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotah, v'tzivanu l'halak ner shel Shabbat. Praised are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. And we turn to page 5, for Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho, b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehillah lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Delicious. It's a little sweet. And now that we've welcomed Shabbat into our midst, we turn together as one congregation to page 28. Page 28, as we rise for our call to worship as a community together, the Baruch Hu. As we turn to page 31 in the middle of the page for our blessing for the evening, I ask my customary question, what phase is the moon in? Does anybody know? Yeah, it's a waxing gibbous or waxing gibbous moon. And we know this, of course, if we saw the beautiful moon in, I think it's in the morning now, or maybe the afternoon. It changes exactly. If we saw that beautiful, like not quite full, but not quite halfway, it's waxing, which means it's getting bigger. And we're thinking about the moon and all of the works of creation that are visible in the night sky when we say our prayer for the evening. So let's read together in the middle of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Amen. We continue on page 34 as we remain standing and prepare for Shema. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Echad. Please be seated. We continue reading together on page 37, an interpretive translation of Yahavta. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. We continue in our Sidurim, in our prayer books, on page 40. Page 40, with our prayer for freedom, Mi Chamocha. We continue on page 44. Page 44 at the top of the page as we celebrate, keywords celebrate Shabbat with Vishamru. Vishamru, Vishamru, b'nei Yisrael, et HaShabbat, La'asot, et HaShabbat, לדורותם בריתם, ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו, ושמרו בני ישראל, את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו, ושמרו בני ישראל, את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ושמרו, ושמרו בני ישראל, את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. Yeah, as the rabbi would say. We come now in our service to the central prayer called the Amidah, the standing prayer, or just Tefillah, the prayer, which begins on page 46 and continues across the next several pages, but we begin together on page 46. Please rise. That my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chastei Avot v'imahot, Umevi Geula livnei vneihem, Lema'an shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor leolam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah, Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umkayem emunato lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehallelujah selah. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. We turn to page 55. Page 55, and we read together at the top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue on page 61. Page 61 at the top of the page. We read together. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael, b'shalom. We continue with a few moments of silent prayer or reflection using the words on the page or the words in our hearts. We continue on page 62. Page 62 at the bottom of the page with our prayer for peace, Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, uya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, uya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, uya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, uya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Amen. At this time in our service, we think about those people in need of healing. Healing of body, healing of mind, healing of spirit. Particularly this week at Beth Ahabah, we're thinking about John Phillipson, Leo Bezanson, Eden Katzenbaum, Richard Balderston, Bob Marks, Charles LeBeau, Jeffrey Teeger, Rivka Kogan, David Tallheimer, Randall Markham Berman, Andrea Bardenett Beam, Lorraine Badofsky, Kathy Marks, Anita Leibowitz, Matthew Deinhardt, Hal Kalish, Shayna Hannah Silver, Rebecca Eichelbaum, Christine Lopez, Irv Kleinman, Sarah Frida Badbela, Arlene Silver Shafton, Fran Bradford, Robin Sue Brockenbrough, David Sachs, Caitlin Zay, Percy Wiley, Larry Ayers, Brenda Stork, Greg Smith, Barbara Bradshaw, Claudia Biegler, Colton Richard Schultz Boyd, Miles Lynn, Charlotte Gluckman, and Nolan Johnson. And if there's anyone else here, anyone in need of healing, or if there's someone in your family, someone you know who's in need of healing, I invite you to share those names out loud or in your hearts as I scan the room. We think of all these people who are in need of healing as we turn together to our Shabbat programs, to our Mishaberach prayer for healing. And we think of our world, which is always in need of healing. Mishaberach. Mishaberach Avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mishaberach Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us Sheberachimotenu, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Amen. And now a few words about this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is from the book of Numbers, and it's called Chukat Balak. It's a double portion, which means that two portions, Chukat and Balak, are sometimes read together as a hyphenated double portion, depending upon how the calendar falls out in a given year. And if you want to know more about double portions and the vagaries of the Hebrew calendar, see me after services. I wrote a whole curriculum. There is a lot of interesting stuff in this week's Torah portions. Here are just a few highlights. The mysterious rules of the red heifer, the para aduma, used to ritually purify someone who came into contact with death. The death and the burial of Moses' sister Miriam. Moses gets mad and hits a rock instead of speaking to it, and God tells him he won't be allowed to enter the promised land. The death and burial of Moses' brother Aaron. More conflict between the Israelite people and God, leading to a plague of fiery serpents, and perhaps most famous of all, the talking donkey who chastises her master, a prophet named Balaam, who was hired by King Balak of Moab to curse the Israelite people, but instead he blesses them in the words that become part of our morning liturgy in the prayer Matovu. It's a lot, right? It's a lot happening. That was just the highlights. Now, there is an emphasis in these later books of Torah, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. There's an emphasis on God really caring about rules and decorum and the offerings that are going to be made in the temple. And maybe there's even more emphasis on this than completely makes sense to us today. Is that fair? I think it's fair. There are innumerable places in the Torah which details specific offerings that the people and or the priesthood are supposed to make to God. Offerings of animals, offerings of grain, offerings of incense. Some of them are offerings of gratitude, some are apology, acting as a way of atoning for mistakes. From our modern perspective, perhaps we wonder, what is up with all these animal sacrifices anyway? And why would that be necessary to atone for wrongs or mistakes? And how does making an offering help Joe Israelite to become a better person anyway? I ask myself these questions anyway. And we call the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, an Eitz Chaim, which means a tree of life, a living tree. We call the Tanakh an Eitz Chaim. We call our Hebrew Bible a tree of life because it continues to grow and to change with us. In no small part because of the different perspectives that we see from different biblical texts. When we read all of our sacred texts as Jews, we can see that in each generation, they had their own communication style, their own spiritual needs. And we see, even within the context of the biblical texts themselves, a progression of ideas that evolved over time. And over time, cultures and civilizations shift and change, both ours and others. Ideas about gods, or God in our case, shifts and changes. Ideas about what it means to be a fully realized human with a meaningful existence have developed in various different ways. So the Haftarah portion for this week, the Torah portion is taken from the Torah, which is the first part of the Hebrew Bible. The Haftarah portion is taken from the Prophets, which is the second section of the Hebrew Bible. The Haftarah portion for this week is from Micah, and it reflects the changing emphasis over time. The images of the sacrifices and the offerings and the firstborn this and the yearling that and the perfectly red heifer and the incense, Micah says that these things are not enough. Instead, Micah and other prophets emphasize the idea that a person's behavior is the real demonstration of their commitment to God and a moral way of life. Simply paying lip service to an ancient tradition and keeping up with the sacrifices was not sufficient. Quote, "With what should I come to the Eternal and bow down before God on high? Should I come before God with burnt offerings, with yearling calves? Would the Eternal be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Should I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for my own sins? It has been told to you, O mortal, what is good. And what the Eternal requires of you is this, only doing justly and loving kindness and walking humbly with your God." Which, when you take it in the context of the Torah portion, make this offering, do this, do that. When you're looking at it in that context, that is absolutely a progression of ideas. And it's also a pretty popular quote. Have any of you heard that one before? Some people say love mercy instead of love kindness, but that was my translation. Let's consider what it means. What does it mean today to do justly, to love kindness? What does it mean to walk humbly with your God? It says your singular, not y'all's God, your God, your God, your God. How are our ideas about God different now than they were in our parents' or grandparents' generations? Even the word God is so loaded with past baggage that for some people it just doesn't work at all as a spiritual concept. Like, nope, God is a non-starter, right? Words like justice, kindness, and humility, these are concepts that we can all chew on and talk about without referencing God at all. But our cultural backgrounds, our families of origin, the beliefs and the philosophies that we were trained into and that we entrained ourselves into throughout our lives, all of those things affect what we mean when we say the word justice or the word kindness, and when we envision what walking humbly might mean. And each of us should take the time to dive deep inside ourselves and to dig out all of the things that we believe to be true about the world and why we believe them to be true. Each of us should spend as much time as it takes questioning and wrestling with our own reactions to things. How do we respond to disagreement, to challenges, to hostility in others? How do we respond when we see other people suffering? What rises up in us? How do our feelings and our beliefs affect our ability to communicate with others who feel or believe differently than we do? Can we communicate at all with people who believe differently than we do? Speaking of feeling and believing differently, this week is also the last Shabbat in June, and in recent years I have tried to reflect in those sermons that fall at the end of June about LGBTQ+ Pride Month and what it means to me. This year has me thinking about how Judaism's views on queer people have changed over time, moving from abhorrence to tolerance to acceptance over time. Yeah. Perhaps the most famous anti-gay quote in our sacred texts is Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13, which some people like to throw around in this definitive conversation ending kind of a way, as though those very same people are following all of the other things laid out in Leviticus. And just to be absolutely clear, even the most observant Jew on the planet today is not following all the rules set forth in Leviticus because there is no temple anymore. It's literally impossible to follow all of the rules in Leviticus. Judaism, as a culture, as a civilization, and as a religion in the modern sense, is not the same as it was 2,000 years ago. In Jewish tradition, even the most strict adherent to halakha, to Jewish law, is part of centuries of tradition, of flexibility, and changing over time to meet the needs of the moment. And different groups of Jews will argue, of course, about what the needs of the moment are and about how we can most faithfully adapt the principles that we inherited from our ancestors and our culture to meet those needs of the moment. But the idea that things have changed over time is not like a debate. It's just factual. Things have changed, and we have changed with them. And that's a cornerstone not just of Reform Judaism, but all of Judaism. Within Judaism in America, acceptance, not just tolerance, but acceptance of queer relationships has never been more mainstream than it is right now. There are Jewish and other people out there who disapprove. And there are other communities in the world where it may be different, but overall, it has never been easier in history to be Jewish and queer than in the modern American progressive Jewish community. And I think that it's worth reminding ourselves of that. At a time when we are inundated by competing messages of fear, intolerance, and our side is better than their side in our political and social discourse. And I say competing messages because from my perspective, this fear and intolerance is present in every aspect of political and social discourse, regardless of which side one might be on. There are aspects of queer identity and relationships in America which are politicized and turned into talking points, and that politicians, they lob it back and forth to whip up their respective bases and sow disagreement and dissension. It's good for business. And this is not only true about queer stuff, it's true about a lot of things. Instead of talking to people, to specific people in personal conversations where we can understand where each of us is coming from, or at least try to, and perhaps find common ground to develop a more nuanced understanding of different people's viewpoints, we have instead a culture of talking at people with the expectation that this talking at should be shared and reshared and re-reshared, because if we're not seen to publicly perform it, then we might be seen as problematic and therefore ostracized or bullied accordingly. Or if I want to be really generous, the best case scenario of this talking at people is that we reshare the performative hot take about a thing that we already agree with because we're being too intellectually lazy to engage on the topic ourselves with actual real people that we have some chance of building rapport and understanding with. And then we feel instinctively that by sharing that post that we have taken action in support of our cause, which makes us feel like we've done something. And if you're nodding along and you're thinking, yeah, those other people over there totally do that, then I just want to tell you that I have personally observed this dynamic in play across the entire political spectrum in America, including in myself, in no small part because I try to have friends and even acquaintances with as wide a range of viewpoints as possible, even people who fundamentally disagree with my choices and my identity. And my answer to this conundrum is to look inward and to think about this from the perspective of, how can I try to transform myself into the best person I can be to meet the challenges of today in the most constructive and sustainable way possible? One Jewish approach to this is cultivating humility. Humility in Judaism is not about false self-disparagement. It's not about being down on oneself or trying to hide or downplay our accomplishments or our strengths. To the contrary, in Judaism, humility is about understanding our true abilities and self-worth. It also means acknowledging that there's always something to learn from others, even those we disagree with, and even those people whom we know to be wrong. Not just like we think they're wrong, but like we literally know they're wrong, we can still learn things from people. And there is always a lesson to be learned. Engaging respectfully with others in a way which is curious and genuinely trying to understand their viewpoint is a way that we can learn lessons from challenging conversations. And this is the example that we see from Moses. Moses, who is described as a very humble and pious man. He's actually described as the most humble man, which is ironic because allegedly Moses wrote the very words in which he says Moses was the most humble and pious man. The rabbis love that one. When Moses is challenged by Korach foments a coup against him just in last week's Torah portion. Moses consults God, and Moses tries to act in a way that's fair to everybody. Moses takes his father-in-law's advice. He sets up a whole system of government to assist with executive responsibilities. He's not trying to keep all the power to himself. And later, at the end of the book of Numbers, Moses listens to the daughters of Zelophehad, and he asks God what to do about an unfair rule of inheritance which excluded women, and God changes the law. So it's clear that the story wants us to follow the example of Moses rather than someone like Bilam or Korach. We're encouraged to stop, to take a reality check, to ask for help if we need it. And most important of all, if reality challenges our worldview or our belief system, we have an obligation to accept what is real and act accordingly. There was a time not so very long ago when I could not have led this Shabbat service as a woman, let alone as somebody who's queer and non-binary. But in modern times, many Jews did a reality check and they altered their view to match the reality that human relationships don't have to look just one way. The reality is that our families have never looked just one way. There have always been a diversity of family structures, of gender identities, of sexualities. And what we have been doing as a society in recent decades is opening our eyes to something that's already there. So my blessing for us as we close out this month celebrating Pride is that in the coming year ahead, we strive for humility. We always remember the inherent dignity and worth of the people around us, regardless of their sexual orientation or their gender or their race or religion or politics or any other form of separation or disagreement that lies between us. By engaging in the inner work to overcome our own ego and to become more humble, we can indeed live up to Bilam's blessing of Israel from this week's portion. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly, how fair, how lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwellings, O Israel. Amen. Shabbat shalom. We return now to our Sidurim. We turn to page 282. Page 282, and Aleinu can be found in the bottom paragraph on page 282. When we reach the bottom of the page, we turn the page 2 times, an unprecedented 2-page flip to get to the conclusion of the prayer, which is B'nai Amar on page 287. But we begin together on page 282, and I ask you to please rise as I open the ark.
לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We continue on page 294. Page 294, as we prepare for the Mourner's Kaddish, we think about those people whom we've loved and lost. And Beth Ahabah is thinking about the recent deaths of Louis Bowman Jr., Sherman B. Lubman, Dr. Joseph Littau, and Denise Coopermink. We're also observing the yahrzeit anniversaries of passing this week of Frank Badofsky, Stephen Raymond Brothers, Frank Creech, Marion Daddlebaum, Eugene Feigelson, Seymour L. Gaby, Ruth Lowenberg Gillespie, Cornelia Offer Garrett, Edward G. Glazer, Margaret S. Hoffer, Leopold Kahn, Helen F. Kaplan, Jerry King, Barry Kurtzer, Diane Opper Lerman, Harry Levy Sr., Ruth S. Mautner, Ruth Wolf Meyer, Milton M. Meyer Jr., Alec Mullen, Norbert Napientek, Barbara Rosenthal Peskin, William Harry Schwarzschild Jr., Jerome A. Scholar, Johnny L. Shepard, Asher Simon, Thomas Smith, Estelle J. Steiner, John Wagner Jr., Helen I. Weiner, James A. Wharton, and Ronnie H. Whitlock. And if there's anyone here who is observing Shiva, the 7 days of mourning following a loved one's death, Shloshim, the 30 days of mourning following a loved one's death, if there's a yahrzeit anniversary that you're marking this week, or if there's simply someone that you'd like to remember on the occasion of this Shabbat, then I invite you to share their names or hold them silently in your heart as I scan the room. We're thinking of all these people that we've named here, and also the people who have no one to say the Kaddish for them. As we turn to page 294, and I ask those in mourning to please rise, those observing a yahrzeit to please rise, and as is our custom here at Beth Ahabah, the whole congregation to please rise in support of one another as we say together the mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mavarach li'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudesha barich hu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. May their memory always be a blessing. Yehi zichronam livracha. Amen. Please be seated. I would like now to invite our congregation's second vice president, Laura Harrison, to the podium for some announcements.
Thank you, Cantor. Shabbat Shalom, and once again, welcome to everyone here in our beautiful sanctuary and everyone on the YouTubes. Thank you to Cantor and Natan for this lovely service. Next Friday, July 3rd, Shabbat services are at the same time and same place, so please join us for Oneg before services at 5:45, featuring, I hear, their world-renowned snow cones and deviled eggs. Snow cones will be served at all the Onegs during the month of July. Looking ahead, mark your calendars for summer cook-offs that are prepared by cookouts prepared by our Brotherhood following services on Friday, July 10th and Friday, August 7th. Young adults should mark their calendars for these upcoming events: the Art of Havdalah workshop on Saturday, July 11th, and the Young Jewish Adults Speed Friending for 21 to 35-year-olds on Tuesday, July 28th. I guess I missed that.
Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, I missed that. Registration is required for both events, so see the back of your Shabbat programs for the QR codes to register. Brotherhood has an open meeting on Tuesday, July 21st. The women of Beth Ahabah are donning their baking caps and baking honey cakes for Tuesday, July 21st. So please sign up to help for this sweet annual tradition using your QR code on the back of your Shabbat programs. For all those and more, see the back of your Shabbat program as she's Vanna Whiting it for us, to sign up or see your e-news weekly emails for more upcoming programs, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks, Laura. As we start coming in for a landing, I want to invite, do we have any kids left? Okay. Well, let's do a blessing for all of us, a Shabbat blessing for all of us. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha, Shalom. May we be blessed in the upcoming week with health and with happiness, with healing and with peace. And let us say, Amen. We'll do the hamotzi. And then, Laura, if you don't mind taking some bread and challah to everybody. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Yes, I should take one for later.
Okay.
It's hard to eat and sing at the same time. Speaking of singing, I invite everyone to turn to our closing song, which is page 365. Brooklyn, page 365. In the middle of the page, Not by Might. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone, Ruach, shall we all live in peace. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone, Ruach, shall we all live in peace. The children sing, the children dream, and their tears may fall, but we'll hear them call, and another song will rise. Another song will rise. Another song will rise. Not by might and not by power, but by Spirit alone, Ruach, shall we all live in peace. Not by might, not by power. Shalom. May we be blessed this Shabbat for the rest of the summer, for the rest of our lives, with peace and that opportunity to look inward and to strengthen ourselves that we get every week with Shabbat. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.